This is your World War III emergency update. Article 4 has been invoked for the second time in as many weeks. This hasn't happened since the beginning of the Ukraine war, and now it's twice in as many weeks as 3 Russian MiG-31 nuclear-capable planes entered into Estonian airspace for 12 minutes. Now, the Russians deny it, but the Russians also denied that the Koreans were fighting on the front lines for the longest time until they started coming back in caskets. You cannot believe the Russians. You certainly cannot believe the pathological lying West. I'm not saying that. I'm trying to speak as dispassionately about this as possible if you want to get to the truth of the matter. 3 nuclear-capable MiG-31s hovering around Estonian airspace. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant. The fact that they went to the extent of invoking Article 4 is major. Historically, had that happened, that instantly puts Russia on a much higher state of nuclear preparedness, and perhaps this is why they're getting ready to do an Oreshnik test over the weekend. They're closing Kapustin Yar airspace. Many people anticipate that they will do a test over the weekend. Now, why is all this happening? Why is today just one of 3 instances of cross-border incursions, whether it be at the Polish offshore oil rig or airspace in and around Kaliningrad, or in this Estonian airspace alleged violation. Why is all this happening right now with the 19 Polish drones? Listen, most people are fixated on this issue of whether or not the Russian missile hit the house in Poland or if it was the Polish missile that hit that. That's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, they're getting you ready for something big. They're getting you ready for a flashbulb event that will be leveraged for the purpose of propagating whatever sort of scheme they have planned next. Just like the Charlie Kirk event, which was a flashbulb event. I bet you any money, most of you remember where you were when you heard the news. I remember where we were. We were driving back from a video shoot, and we were all pretty stunned by what happened. Now, Charlie Kirk, may he rest in peace. I'm not going to be engaged in any of that unproductive bullshit, never-ending tribalistic banter that go nowhere, commiserating about who done it and what's going to come of it. All I can tell you is this: I know who benefits. Who benefits is the military-industrial complex, who now is openly stating they're going to use him and various slogans that relate to Charlie Kirk's passing for the purpose of recruitment across the many chapters in the United States. Isn't it coincidental that they now are not only going to be using that event for the purpose of military recruitment, because the numbers are way down? Hegseth isn't drawing the kind of recruits that they thought he initially would with all his attempts at badassery. And in addition to that, you're also having Antifa, or anti-anything, and isn't it convenient that the thing that has been designated a terrorist organization, this nebulous, ambiguous, decentralized organization, isn't it also coincidental that it has anti in the name? So if you're anti-war, oh, you must be Antifa. If you're anti-low pay because, you know, the wealth gap is reaching record levels, oh, you must be Antifa. So it doesn't matter what you're going to protest in the future, you will be Antifa adjacent. And for the purpose of civil defense, this is what they're going to do. You got the recruitment, you got the Antifa, you got ICE rolling out hundreds, did I read that right? Hundreds of new offices around the country. These guys strutting around in paramilitary gear with automatic rifles, with CBRN gear, training themselves to deal with a disgruntled, disenfranchised civilian population. That is called preparation for civil war as a result, which will run concurrently with the major World War III on every possible front. Venezuela, they're gearing up for war. Taiwan, they're gearing up for war. Iran, today, with the snapback sanctions reimposed and the aircraft carrier exiting the Persian Gulf, all signs that war is about to flare up there once again as well. Shit is hitting the fan all over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and all throughout the Levant. It's all going to heat up. You got shit hitting the fan right now in Saratov. Hit once again inside Russia. One of their biggest oil refineries was struck once again, as well as Engels. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at the time of making this video, Russia is lighting up Ukraine as well. So we have all of these cross-border incursions. Everything is reaching a fever pitch. Warren Buffett is flashing red, saying, get the hell out of the market. It's going to bust. Silver reaches new highs. I consider it a new high because I don't consider what happened in 1980 with that whole cornering of the market scam to be the record high, or what happened in 2010 for that matter. Silver is sending signals. Gold still at record high levels. I mean, if you can't figure this out by now, if you're just going to continue to waste your time, you're dead when it comes to SHTF. You're not going to survive. Darwin has your number. Anybody who hasn't figured out what's going on right now, by now, and where this is all going, Darwin has your number, man. So just don't even bother prepping. You know, go down there, write your shitty comment. I don't care, because I'm going to keep on grinding. There's a reason why I work as hard as I do, because I know the hell that is coming. And I know that every hour right now is worth 100 hours after the lights go out. NATO has also done an interception over the Baltic. Eurofighter Typhoons launched to meet a Russian Ilyushin 20M flying near NATO airspace without the transponder on. Okay, this is the second one today. Now, the third one today was a low pass over Polish offshore platforms in the Baltic. A pair of Russian fighters reportedly buzzed Lotos Petro-Baltic platform in the Baltic Sea, heightening NATO-Russia flashpoint risk in critical energy lanes. So they're sending a message. They're saying, look, we know you're getting ready to go after our shadow fleet. You're destroying our oil and gas infrastructure. Gasoline shortages are a problem in many places throughout Russia. Of course, they're always going to try to make sure that it's never a problem in Moscow, because that's where a lot of the sentiment is conveyed to the rest of the world. But in many other places, there are very long lineups for gasoline. Russia is getting pushed. Trump has said that he's not happy with Putin and this and that, and everything is just developing in the exact same way I said it would. Putin is disappointing me, as Trump said. And what did I say? When you have Trump and Putin finally at loggerheads, after that meeting concluded and after all the pomp and pageantry dissipates, what are you going to get? You're going to get a war, and it's going to be an ugly one. And so right now, this covert Marshall Plan 2.0, I call it. Marshall Plan is just how they prepped Europe for the Cold War back post-World War II. Well, this time around, it is Europe who is picking up the tab, because the United States, quite frankly, is broke. The only thing they have money for now is building out the infrastructure to lock everybody down, to ensure that all the rich people get to maintain their privilege post-SHTF. And if you don't think so, I'm telling you, every country is releasing a little guide like this. Every country but yours. This is called the safety guide. You got to read what's in the safety guide. This is from Poland. This is a translation, but they're all releasing these very comical, puerile guides on how to deal with an invading force when the shit hits the fan, and what your obligations are going to be. You need to get ready not only to fight a war abroad, but to fight a war probably at home. And I'm not saying civil war. I'm not condoning any sort of stochastic terrorism or political violence or anything of the sort. I'm talking about what's going to happen when the excessive rule of law kicks in, and that whole COVID thing has a militant angle to it. And it's not just, you know, police misguidedly chasing people down the beaches because they weren't wearing a mask. It is going to be them chasing you down because either they're ready to expropriate your human resource or your stuff. That's what it's going to be. And it's not going to be good, man. It's going to get really, really ugly because, of course, coalescing with all of it is the AI super intelligent surveillance state Palantir apparatus. It's going to get real ugly, folks. Real, real ugly. Russia is closing its airspace on September 27th. Over Kapustin Yar training ground from September 22nd, I should say, to September 27th, 5 days, we could potentially be slated for a Oreshnik launch. This is the launch site of the IRBM Oreshnik intermediate range ballistic missile. Big deal. Guys, I have a little sidekick here today. Just a little, let's have a little cool down here in this video. This is Missy. This is my new inside kitty cat, okay? This is Missy. She's gonna be my rat hunter indoors for the winter. She will be accompanied by 5 outdoor cats who currently patrol the acreage, and maybe she'll just be my inside the car rant and banter cat as well. I just picked her up. A friend of mine had given her to me, so she's a real sweetheart. Yes, she is. You're a sweetheart, you know that? Super chill, listening to me rant and rave. Now I got somebody to keep me company into the wee hours of the morning. All right. What else do we got to talk about? Iranian snapback sanctions. Listen, Iran is under the gun, man. It doesn't look good. UN Security Council reinstates sanctions lifted under the 2015 JCPOA effective September 27th. Interesting, September 27th raises the odds of a nuclear acceleration in Iran once again. There was a clash in Iranian airspace. There was also Iranian missile drills today. A U.S. drone entered into Iranian airspace once again today, and there was a mysterious Iranian missile test as well. The Saudi-Pakistan defense pact that was talked about yesterday, it was reiterated today that this indeed, and they spelled it out in plain terms, the defense minister of Pakistan said that this includes nuclear weapons, including them being brought under the nuclear umbrella. So this is the equivalent of the relationship between the Russians and the Belarusians, as well as the Russians and the North Koreans. The same thing, only on the seemingly other side of the fence. It's hard to say where those two can fall right now. We're not really going to know, but we would presume that the Saudis are going to be on the side of the West, as will Pakistan. And, you know, surprisingly, it looks like India was thrown under the bus, and they're going to be fighting alongside the Russians and the Chinese. Isn't that going to be something? So right now you have the Iranians doing whatever they can to ingratiate themselves to the West, to no avail, unfortunately, because they now, get this, they withdrew a resolution banning attacks on their nuclear sites. Yes, you heard correct. Okay, so they've done everything that they possibly can. Okay, they've signaled to the world that, hey, we did everything that we possibly could. So now you leave us with no choice. And the only option they're going to have at this point, the only way that they're going to ride this out without having complete destruction brought upon their country, is if they can get in good with another nuclear armed state. If they don't come under the auspices of the Russian or Chinese nuclear programs, under the umbrella of those nuclear programs, then it doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good, because, I mean, I don't know. I get why they're trying to buy time. They need more and more time to prepare. I get that. But they're in a really serious predicament, because not only now do you have Saudis that have nukes, you also have a situation by which if you do defeat, or you get close to defeating Israel, they'll use nukes against you. You know they will. So it's a situation where they need somebody who has nuclear weapons, who has their back. The Afghanistanis have, or the Taliban, I should say, have rejected Trump's appeal to get Bagram Air Base back. He, of course, stated he wanted it back because it would, quote, bring them closer to China's nuclear weapons. So maybe the Chinese are going to say, you know what? Let's give Iran some nuclear weapons. We got a lot to spare. I think they might. I think they might do it. Yep. Did I say that the price of silver is blowing the hell up? $60 Canadian. It hasn't been $60 Canadian in a long, long time. Not since 1980, I believe, was it 60 Canadian, because the Canadian dollar was doing a bit better than the American dollar back in the 2010s. So When it peaked in 2010, it wasn't doing as great in Canadian, but the 1980 thing was a market cornering scheme, and that really doesn't count. The price of silver is telling you that they're preparing for war. The price of gold is telling you that they're preparing for war. Don't need to beleaguer that point anymore. There are concerns that in Transnistria, which is the Russian exclave, more or less, that borders Moldova and Ukraine, that is home to one of the biggest military arsenals in the world and in Europe, indefinitely in Europe, but in the world as well. Weapons that Ukraine could possibly use, and I don't think Russia has had access to. Well, there is concerns that Moldova, with the backing of Romania and Ukraine, could potentially try to take over Transnistria, which is something that we've anticipated for a long, long time, but it hadn't happened. We got 19th round of sanctions coming in pretty soon. The U.S. is preparing a $6 billion weapons package for Israel. What else is new? We have the Venezuelan-Russian strategic partnership. So, I mean, this is just writing itself at this point. You know, you get your Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0 that's going to start pretty soon. They're doing military exercises involving thousands of troops in the Caribbean. Ukraine just released a new underwater drone that has a 2,000-kilometer range and a 5-ton payload. This thing is massive. They're going to use that on the Crimean Bridge. They're going to use it to try to hunt probably Russian submarines. They're going to use it to hunt whatever's left of Russia's Navy. That's big, and they can't be doing that stuff without NATO. This is all NATO funded. Russia knows it. Everybody is trying their darndest to kick Day X down the road. Every day right now, you have a chance. You have a chance to do what you got to do every single waking hour. I want people to really understand this. You got to go watch my movie review of Threads. After the dust settles and there's nothing left, every 100 hours, you'll be able to accomplish maybe 15 minutes of what you could accomplish right now. That's how easy life is right now compared to how it could possibly get when this whole thing goes up in flames. I hope it never happens, but it very well may. And you're going to be kicking yourself for not taking, I'm not just saying you got to do everything, you can't live life, you can't enjoy life. I'm just saying, just really try to grind. Grind right now, get the most out of this grid that you possibly can at this point in time, because the time may come when the lights go out and they don't come back on for a long, long time. And when they do come back on, who knows what sort of jackboot thuggery they have planned for us at that point in time. U.S. freight from China is falling off a cliff. It is almost at levels not seen since COVID. Shit's hitting the fan. Now, in terms of all of the Russian incidents and NATO incidents along the borders, in the last 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, last 12 days, we've had a Russian spy ship seized by German forces, and this is courtesy of OSINT Intel Schizo, I believe his name is, on Twitter. Russian spy ship seized by German forces in the Kiel Canal for launching recon drones, tracking German naval movements. They claim that there were 500 drone incidents over Germany alone. What? And this guy's credible, okay? We may not agree on anything, but he's credible. September 7th, M18 flew into Estonia. September 10th, 19 drones launched into Poland. September 10th, 1 drone launched into Romania. September 10th, 1 drone launched into Latvia. September 13th, unknown number of drones launched into Poland. September 13th, a drone launched into Romania. 14th, Russian ship conveniently breaks down in the Oreshnik Strait above Sweden's LNG pipeline. September 19th, 3 MiG-31s fly into Estonia, and those 2 other incidents of the offshore rig today and the close call around Kaliningrad. So, like I said, they're getting us set up for World War III, and isn't it convenient that they now have this Flashbulb martyr event that's a catalyst for civil war, a way for them to suppress any kind of dissent, anything that has anti in the title, right? A way for them to get the military in the streets, a way for them to boost recruitment numbers, because nobody's going to sign up for World War III and everybody's going to throw a hissy fit when they go for conscription. And Candace Owen has everybody chasing ghosts. That's what's going on. If you want to know what's going to go down when the shit hits the fan, read the new Polish emergency war guide, or safety guide as it's called. You can see right from the get-go the point that they're trying to drive home in this. They're trying to, they always try to package this as just for natural disasters and tornadoes. I think the only thing that Poland is afflicted with is maybe floods and what else? Like floods and droughts, maybe. I don't think earthquakes are a big deal there. But listen to this. If martial law is declared or war breaks out, this system automatically transforms into civil defense, and defense against external threats is carried out in parallel by the Polish army. Civil defense is not part of the armed forces. It is to protect us from all of the dangers associated with warfare and its effects. Prepare yourself and your loved ones using this guide. In the event of armed conflict, you should continue to work in your profession unless you receive other tasks. Right? You're going to do what you're told. Even if there's bombs going off, you get your ass to work, especially if you're essential. If you don't, you're going to be fined. And I'm not kidding. If you receive a mobilization assignment to civil defense, you will take the tasks that will help protect people, property, and infrastructure of cultural goods. This is a translation. This is, I had this PDF translated, so it was in Polish, so it's not going to be a direct translation. Every citizen of the Republic of Poland has a constitutional duty to defend the homeland. Poland's security depends not only on the army, but is based on the broad involvement of the inhabitants of our country. So the first 10 pages of this are just basically them saying, hey, if you try to dodge the draft, your ass is grass. Both in times of crisis or mobilization as well as war, you may be required to transfer your property, buildings, vehicles to the state. Later, it will be returned to you, or you will receive compensation. I hope it's more than Canadians are going to get for their guns. If you receive a call-up card for military exercises, remember, these are not hostilities. These are routine activities of the Polish army. I wonder if those Russian saps thought that when they were told that they were going for an exercise. You remember when they sent all those conscripts into Ukraine? They said, it's just an exercise, don't worry. Just go across the border there. Just follow orders. Remember, if you evade military service, you will face legal consequences regardless of whether you're in Poland or abroad. Big, bold letters. They want to make sure you know that. I'm going to do an in-depth breakdown of all of these guides that have been coming out, because they've been, cranking them out over the years in all of the countries that are kind of straddling the lines of conflict. If you are an employer, familiarize yourself with your obligations to employees during states of emergency and war. This is something I think not a lot of employers really think through, that you actually may have obligations to your employees. And I wonder if there is some kind of civil defense protocol for big corporations like Walmart. Like, I've always wondered, because it's so standardized across all American and Canadian cities, think about it, logistically speaking, the best way to distribute stuff or to administrate some sort of post-collapse, continuity plans would be using the Walmarts or the Costcos, because they're in the same place in every city. It's largely standardized, it's universal. And so I have a sneaking suspicion that there are plans for these big corporations, because of course that's where a lot of people might even be getting their information from. And it'll be interesting to see what the obligations are of employers for their employees, because of course it's easier if you already have a relationship with people, right? So they're probably going to put the onus of responsibility for those people on the employers, because instead of, in the movie Threads, they go and they force a guy to take 4 or 5 refugees. Like, the military is going door to door and trying to find a place for people, because they have to keep them alive in order to work in the fields, to make sure that the elite stay fat. So they need to find places to put these people. So they force people to take in refugees. Okay? Now, I suspect that if you were an employer at one time, they're going to there's going to be something in these emergency war measures acts that stipulates that you have to have some kind of responsibility post-collapse for your workers, but that's just speculation. They talk about bug-out bags. They talk about what to do in the case of an air attack. Okay, face down, away from the blast. Try to find a shallower depression to duck into. In the case of a containment threat, radioactive, prepare to survive at least a few days inside a sealed building. Okay, they're preparing people for nuclear war. Disturbing behaviors. This is interesting. This is where the homegrown terrorism thing comes in. Changes in the behavior of people from your surroundings which cannot be logically explained, unjustified attempts to obtain personal data, building plans, or other sensitive information. So they're preparing for saboteurs. There's another section in here where they talk about biological threats again. They say only call if you have an emergency. Only call if you have to. Do not block the networks because remember, the cell phone networks are going to be overwhelmed in SHDF. They're probably just going to shut them off. Essential services only. Do not fuel the panic. Do not spread. Do not share videos or photos from the scene. All taken from the Ukrainian playbook. Do not call people in danger. You may reveal their hiding place. Disinformation. Do not believe reports of the collapse of the state and capitulation. This is going to be an essential theme. Do not believe the lies. And remember, the Israelis were, well, they aren't really good at it, but they try to do it a lot where they'll always say, oh yeah, the enemy's on the brink of defeat. They're about to be defeated. And they tried to do that with Iran. They tried to sow chaos and discourse throughout the entire country, hoping that that would cause panic that they could exploit. Well, it didn't work, but that is a big threat. And something you need to consider, and that's why the fog of war is going to be so incredibly difficult in those times. Now, there was a page in here where they're showing you, and they specifically, what was weird about it, let me see if I can find the page. They're showing you how to prepare your home, but they really emphasize that you need to seal up your windows and doors, which of course you would only need to do, oh yeah, right here. So it's house or apartment, prepare items for sealing and securing doors and blankets, towels and tape. The only reason why you would need to do that is some kind of CBRN threat, right? So, you know, that's different. That's definitely different. They're preparing the Poles for nuclear war. In crisis situations, limit the use of your car. Roads should be passable for rescue services and military transports. All right, I got to get going. I got to get Missy home here. It's going to be her first day on the homestead. She's looking pretty chill. I think she's getting used to me ranting and raving. You're going to hear a lot of that. Yes, you are. Get some cats. They will keep the mice and pests at bay. I used to have a gopher problem. There was like hundreds of gophers. I unleashed an army of cats, and I guarantee within weeks, just completely, you don't see anything anymore. I don't know where they went. I don't know if they moved somewhere else. But man, I love these kitties. They're great. You know, everything on the farm just works like symbiotically. Like you got the dogs, they keep the wildlife at bay, and you know, they watch over the livestock, which keeps the bugs at bay, and the bees feed the trees, and the trees feed the bees, and you know, it just all works out, man. You got to get that training. Well, the getting is good. And if you're just starting out, it's okay. You still have a major head start because 90% of people have their head in the sand right now. And if they're not just wasting their time in this tribalistic banter online, then their heads are in the clouds, and they think that nothing is wrong. So just the fact that even if you have nothing, even if you just stumbled into prepping and you just had that aha moment of how vulnerable you actually are, and you live in the dead of the inner city and in a high-rise building, and you've realized that if the shit were to hit the fan today, you'd be screwed, you are still probably better off just having that realization than 90% of the population. There is still time to get the wheels turning on this. So get at it where you can. Thanks for watching, guys. Gotta go.